So once again, welcome to our YouTube channel. It's nice to have you here. For those who don't know me, my name is Abraham. I'm an educational consultant at Edward Consulting. And our topic for today is 5 tips for securing scholarships for your MBA program. Scholarships. So people, when they hear scholarships, their ears just start like this. But I'm really excited to talk about this topic because one thing we are very passionate about at Edward Consulting is making sure people can get the most scholarships. I don't like my clients spending their money, so it's good to get the scholarship so you don't have to spend anything or you spend less, right? When you're talking about scholarship, one important thing before I even go into my points is you need to know it's not a one size fits all. Because someone got a particular scholarship does not mean you will get it. And because you got it does not mean you bring your friend and your friend will get the same scholarship. It's different profiles, different people. You and your friend don't have the same GPA, you don't have the same work experience, you don't have the same GRE or GMAT score, right? So it's very important that you understand that when it comes to scholarships, it's based on your profile. So let's get into it today. So the first and most important tip when you're applying for scholarships, start early. Start early. Start early. You see how I'm saying this multiple times because of how important it is. When people come for the MBA applications and they want to start like 2 weeks to the deadline, I say how? What do you want us to do? What's magic? No, we've done it before, but realistically, it's better to start early because when you start early, part of the things you are doing is you are taking the GRE or GMAT exam. If you are familiar with MBA, this is something required, and if you are not so familiar, now you know. However, not all MBA programs require the GRE or GMAT. Right, one thing about starting early is when you take that exam. So let's take for example, application portals they typically open August, or September, depending on the scope. So let's take for example you are starting as early as May, or you are starting as early as April, and you've taken your GRE in April or May. This gives you sufficient time to prepare for your application that will open in August. One thing about taking the GREs or GMAT rather is you can get a score, but you need to retake it. If you have taken this exam in April or May, you can take it before August. That gives you ample time to still prepare and get a strong score. You retaking this exam does not mean you fail. It just means there's a particular score you are targeting that you want to get because of the kind of scores you are targeting, because of the kind of scholarships you are targeting. So it's very important that you start early to take this exam. Again, this leads me to my second point, school selection, because when you're applying for an MBA program, school selection is extremely important. When you have a GRE GMAT score, let me start from you not having it. When you don't have a score, it's harder for you to finalize your school selection. Different MBA programs, they have their GRE or GMAT average that they require. For example, the school might prefer people that have scores of 328 and above on the GRE, and on the GMAT maybe 650 and above. And that's the school you're targeting. Let me just say this school in question is Columbia Business School. Let's say that's the school you're targeting, but then you've taken the GRE the first time and your score is a 319 or a 320. That's actually not a bad score. In certain schools you can still get substantial scholarships. However, for the school you are targeting, it's not a competitive score, so you need to take it again. And this is why it's important. This is why I tell people that it's important not to finalize your school selection before the GRE, because if you have taken the GRE for the final time, you can before the deadline, which means that you basically can't take it again before the deadline because you have to prepare your application. If you have taken it for that final time and you've already finalized the school selection, if that GRE score, for example, is not a great one or competitive enough for that school, and the application doesn't turn out so, then it's not going to be a good thing. It's be like a waste of your application fee, waste of your time and effort. And this does not mean if the GRE score is not up to par, you can't get into the school of choice, or if your GRE score is not up to what this class profile requires, you can't get into the program. Because the whole essence of reviewing your application is not tied to the GRE or GMAT. While yes, it's important, it's not tied to that. There's still other parts like your GPA, your work experiences, your extracurricular activities, right? But the school selection, for you to finalize that school selection, it's important you have your GRE or GMAT score. Still under this topic of school selection, there will be some people, if you are one of those people, no offense, that may not want to take the GRE or GMAT exam. Maybe because of work commitments, your work is too busy, you can't find the time to actually do your 9 to 5 or do your businesses and still find ample time to read, study, and take this exam, right? Which is fine. But at the same time, it's important that you're open about school selection, because when it comes to GRE or GMAT, some schools may not require it, one. Some schools may waive it. In the case of schools that may not require it, that's very common amongst European schools, and them not requiring it also means that they may have alternate tests, admissions tests that you can take in place of the GRE or GMAT. In cases where you want to apply for a waiver, you want to start planning that during the process of your school selection. One, you are selecting schools that allows you to apply for a test waiver. Right, apply for a test waiver typically means you want to show how you have a strong quantitative background that shows you don't need the GRE to demonstrate your quantitative readiness for an MBA program. So there are pros and cons of applying for a waiver. The pro is that, well, yes, you get the waiver in some cases if the school approves it. The con now is that a waiver can actually hurt your application more than people realize, because schools rather would always compare. While you're applying for a waiver, people are coming there with GRE scores of 330 plus, GMAT scores of 600, 650 plus. So we are being honest with ourselves. When the schools are comparing, if these people are having similar GPAs or work experiences like you do, when the schools are comparing these profiles, there's every possibility that those people may be preferred over you because you're applying without a waiver. So while when you meet with ADCOM members, they might tell you things like, oh, the GRE is not so important, you can consider that part of your application. My dear, I will tell you the truth. It's important, it's very important, and this is just an encouragement for you to take the GRE if you're applying for an MBA. It will strongly help your application. And don't get me wrong, if you help people without GRE scores get 85% scholarships, 100% scholarships, tuition with stipend, right? Again, it's not a one size fits all. You also need to evaluate and see how these people's profiles match with the school selections that we are doing to make sure that these applications we are going to do will be a good fit. Number 3 point, the third point on securing scholarships for your MBA program is telling your story. Some people may ask, what's my story? Some people also ask me, Abraham, is my story strong enough? Is my story, is it compelling? I don't know what to say. The thing is, people want to have sub stories, they want to have empathetic stories, right? But that's not the essence of having a story. The story is basically what is driving you. You want to apply for an MBA now, right? In your head, you have certain places you want to work post MBA. You have certain things you want to do. What is the driving factor behind that? For example, you're saying, post MBA, I want to get into consulting, right? I want to start my own consulting firm, or before that, I work for Big Four. What's the driving factor? What's experience led you to feel like, oh, I really want to do consulting? Maybe you had an experience where you are working with businesses, let me say SMEs in Africa, or whichever country you're from, and these experiences just make you understand how a lot of businesses are lacking proper consulting or advice for them to actually maintain or scale their businesses. That can be your story because that's your driving force to doing what you want to do post MBA, right? And sometimes this can be personalized experiences where people had experiences growing up, family experiences, or in their community. That's your story. But when you think about your story, it's important you can think about your goals first. What do I want to do post MBA? Where do I want to work? What industry do I see myself working in? Then you think about, okay, what's driving this goal? It's important for you to have a story because everybody applying for an MBA is going to come and say, my short-term goal is to work in KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, blah blah blah, doing this and that and that, right? My long-term goal is to do something similar, this and that and that. However, when it comes to reviewing your applications, admissions committees will always remember your story because they want to understand the why. Why do you want to work at those companies? Why do you want to do this? So that passion, that drive needs to be there. And um, this story is told through your essays, through your application in general, and through your interviews, which I will still come to. Right? It's important that you can tell your story through your essays because people will always remember your story. Nobody's going to remember that you want to work in JP Morgan, you want to work in Goldman Sachs. Because guess what? You're not the only one writing that. A lot of people are going to write that, but when you tell us the story, what's motivating you to work at those companies, then that even further shows that even if you don't work at those particular companies, there might be other companies you can still work at. But there's a driving force behind what you need to do. That's why your story is very important. Right? So this telling your story is really necessary when you are doing your MBA application because when it comes to funding, there are schools that give scholarships based off of automatic consideration where based on the information you provided in the application they automatically consider you for the scholarship. There are also schools that give that require an additional application. This is more common amongst UK and European EU schools where you have to submit an additional application. Sometimes they might tell you to do a video essay, they might tell you to write another essay, you might do an interview. All these are opportunities for you to tell your stories. It's important that you can tell your story, and sometimes people feel they feel shy, if that's what I will use to tell their stories. And I always encourage you to be vulnerable. You're looking for scholarship, do you want money? Do what it takes to get money. And when I say do what it takes, I'm not talking about lying. I mean telling the truth, still showing your strength. Because a lot of times your strength lies in your vulnerability. I'm already getting very passion driven here. But I'm just trying to explain. I'm just trying to explain why it's important for you to tell your story, especially when it comes to securing scholarships for your MBA program. And the fourth point I have here would be connecting with current students and alumni. You might be shocked how far this can take you with getting funding, but it does a whole lot. Schools want people that want them. They want people that are interested in them. For example, if you are single and are watching this video, let's say you have a partner. Sorry, if you are single and watching this video, you don't have a partner rather. You have someone you are talking to, you are in the talking stage as people popularly call it, and the person is not showing interest in you, eventually you would leave. If you have self-respect, you leave. So in the case of admission, if you don't show interest in the school, well, they might admit you, but they might not show so much interest in you because one, you've not really shown them why you're interested in them. So for example, when you are applying to a school, you can easily just type that school on LinkedIn, or you go to their website to try and look for alumni, current students, through alumni clubs. When we type it on, let's start with LinkedIn because most people use LinkedIn and all of that. If you type it on LinkedIn, you can easily see that this code has different alumni or current students on LinkedIn because people love to put their schools on their bio on LinkedIn, especially when it goes to very top schools. And this is an opportunity for you to connect with them. Connecting with them is just essentially to speak with them, talk about the school with them, how the school has been supportive to them, how they are able to maximize resources during their time at the school, and even how the school has been supportive towards their post-MBA goals. One thing is that this would one help you in your school selection, is to give you clarity to know if the school is one the right, a good fit for you. It will also give you clarity in terms of the kind of funding available at the school, because then you can speak to them, they can let you know this was the amount of funding I got in my time, right? All those conversations are very important, but the most important part about speaking with these people is mentioning it in your application. It's not for you to just speak with them and then leave it. Name drop as many people as you can. Some schools in the application portals may ask you, have you connected with any students, alumni? Mention it. Even in your essays, there would always be the part where they ask you about your goals. They ask you about your goals or how the school would help aligns with your goals. So when you talk about your interest in the school, it's an opportunity for you to name drop people. For example, I spoke to Abraham Etan, class of 2024. He told me how he was able to use the career servicing program that was helpful for him post MBA, helping him secure a job within 1 month or 2 months of graduation. It's important you can name drop people, not just for your essays, even for your interviews, which I will get to on my next point. Name dropping is very important. When the schools can see that you've name dropped, you've connected, they understand that you have sincere interest in learning about their community, which are those are the kind of people schools want to admit. Then my final point on securing scholarships will be prepare for your interview. I would, if I was to rank it, I would put these points I would say at second, at number two. Number one being the school selection, because I really find that to be very important. But preparing for your interview is, if not equally important, because a lot of people they are good on paper. So it's not good for you to be good on paper and then you are underwhelming during the interview, because when your interviewers before the interview they would have gone through your profile, your work experiences, your GRE scores, your GPA. They would have seen all the things you put in your application. They're like, wow, they are already rooting for you from that moment. So they are coming to that interview with a high expectation from you. They've seen you on paper, now they want to learn more about you. When you talk about yourself, you talk about your interest in the school, you talk about your MBA goals, you talk about how you contribute to the community, you talk about your different leadership experiences, right? It's an opportunity for them to get to know you. So you don't want to come unprepared. That's the worst thing you can do for yourself, because it's almost, if not an automatic rejection or waitlist. But the fact that the school invited you for an interview, it shows they are interested in you. Because if they're just inviting everybody, then everybody will get an interview invite. Most people get rejected or listed without interview, but they're inviting you because they want to learn more about you, they want to get to know you better. So preparing for your interview entails researching more about the school. What are the particular things that attract you to the school? Is it about the curriculum? Is it the experiential learning opportunities? Do they have some specific or unique resources that they offer to their MBA students that will be helpful for your career goal? One important thing when you're doing your interview, well, you talk about your interest in the school, the reasons why you selected the school. It's important that you can connect this to yourself. Anybody can go and research the website, can go on the website and mention some of the things I've just mentioned. But when you personalize this and say, I'm interested in this school because of this particular reason, this leadership development program, it will help me improve my international leadership skills, because I intend to lead multinationals post MBA. This is something that is very important to me. So you see how I'm personalizing it. So that's what you want to do during your interviews, right? Even when you talk about yourself, when you're introducing yourself, when you say things about yourself, it's very important that you give a walk through of yourself. So talk about yourself. It's not just you going into what you do for work. That's not the correct answer. You need to walk us through your experiences, your upbringing, where you are from, your educational background, your professional background in a chronological order, your extracurricular activities. It's important. So interviews are extremely important. I've seen people, I've had clients very good on paper, get invited from all the schools and get into law. You don't want that to be your situation, you don't want that to be your story. And that's why it's important to prepare for the interview. And get back to what I said about connecting with current students and alumni. This is equally important. These people will give you a lot of tips for the interview that you can imagine. Even name dropping them during your interview session, because when you can talk about how one of the reasons for coming to this school, maybe you connected with the community, you can name drop 3 to 5 people you connected with, and how conversations with these people facilitated your decision to study or to choose this program. So these things, these 5 points are very equally important. It's not while I said our rank is one does not necessarily outweigh each other, because they all need each other. Equally important. I like having bonus points. My bonus points will be applied to multiple schools. It's very important, and this would still even fall under school selection. You can't say because once you get into Harvard and Stanford, you only apply to Harvard and Stanford. No, that should never be the case. It's important that when you're applying to schools for an MBA program, because of how competitive that program is, you want to be applying to 4 to 5 schools. 4 to 5 schools, because it's a competitive program. Things may not necessarily go well all the time, especially when you apply for scholarships. Things not going well does not mean you get to the program. You can get to the program and you get zero funding. It's not exactly going well in that case. I mean, it's a good first step, but zero funding basically means you might not be able to afford it because of the exchange rates, lack of funds, and all of that. So in such situations, when you have multiple schools you apply to and then you have multiple offers, it's easier for you to negotiate. You can negotiate with schools. MBA programs have always been able to negotiate for additional funding. We've negotiated with got people additional funds of, let me see, 20,000 euros or 30,000 pounds, 50,000, sometimes up to a full tuition in dollars, depending on the schools we're negotiating with. But why it's important to apply to multiple schools is it gives you different options. If things don't go well here, they can go well here, right? And if they go well in all the schools, then you can easily negotiate, because not all schools will come with a first offer of full tuition scholarship. And the goal is for you to get the most amount of scholarships you can get from each school. So when you are able to have multiple offers, you can negotiate. Tell X school, you can tell, let me say, Harvard, hey, I really want to come to your school, however, CBS is offering me X amount. And because they don't want to lose you to CBS, they're able to increase your scholarship offer for you. These are some of the things that you need to consider when you're selecting your schools. They are extremely important. And if you're having confusion about your school selection, that's why we're here at MBA Consulting to support you. Just click the link in this video. Book a consultation with us. You can book a 10 minutes consultation, you can book a 30 minutes consultation. You can also book a 60 minutes brainstorming session if you want to spend more time with us. I will take time to assess your profile, recommend the best next steps, and help you with your application. It was nice having you here. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Goodbye.